The freedom that I have from this. I'm not tied down. I can do this remotely. When I travel, I can just bring my laptop with me and I can do groups from anywhere in the world.
Today on Hustle 50, I'm excited to bring you our very first guest interview. My good friend Mike Kesselring is the founder of Just Sit Seattle. Mike turned a personal meditation practice into a thriving business that now gives him incredible freedom. He teaches and leads sessions remotely, meets people in person, records content, and travels while still running a full business. Mike started Just Sit Seattle in 2017 after his own transformative journey with mindfulness that began during his early recovery in 2001. He's a certified mindfulness meditation teacher through the programs led by Jack Kornfield and Tara Brack at UC Berkeley. And he now helps individuals, groups, businesses, couples, and even travelers bring more presence, peace, and focus into their lives. Mike, welcome to Hustle 50. Thanks for being the first guest on the show.
You're welcome, Laura.
Thanks, man. Here we are. The one thing that I think that people need to know right up front is that we're very good friends.
Yes.
And so I know a lot of your story, and you came into mine, and I thought that it would just be really cool to tell your journey because it really fits into the archetype of what this show is going to be all about. And so with that, why don't we just jump into it if you're cool?
Yeah, sounds killer.
So just, I think backstory is really important here, and what was life like for you before meditation became a big part of it?
Well, I mean, it would be hard for me to talk about that and not talk about the fact that, meditation came into my life due to my journey in recovery from substance use disorder or addiction disorder or alcoholism, drug addiction, however you want to label it. Um, Meditation wasn't really a part of my life until I started that journey in recovery. So it kind of in the modality that I use when it comes to recovery, it's kind of suggested that we figure out a way to be able to pause or to get quiet with ourselves. And so that's really how that came about. Um, Before that, before 2000, the year 2000, meditation wasn't really on my radar. So I would have to say it had to do with that part of my life changing.
Yeah, yeah. And so what was happening personally or professionally that made you feel like a change was needed once you got to a place much later on? I know that that didn't start in 2001 for you. Um,
No.
but fast forwarding into this place where, meditation, or at least teaching it or sharing it, like what was happening, I think, really professionally for you where you're like, man, something's got to change.
Well, there was times. So before I started teaching meditation, about I would say 16 years into my my practice of meditation, I was a union mason. I worked on skyscrapers all over Seattle. I worked very, very high off the ground. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, for me, this came about due to some health things that happened in my life where I was forced out of my career. Now, I think it's important to also point out that, for a long time I wanted to change careers, but my career, I was kind of wrapped into a very practical career. I mean, it was a union career, it had benefits, I had a family, it just changing careers, especially something like starting my own business and starting to teach meditation, seemed really scary, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. I mean, I'm going to give up this job, that's for sure, for something I have no idea if it's even going to, if it's even able to happen, was something. So I was kind of forced into it. And and so that's kind of how that came about, was through health reasons. I got forced into having, in a way, to kind of change careers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I remember when we would talk about it back then, it was like there was just all this fear around the obvious. It's like
Yeah,
this idea of trading security for reinventing my entire like
yeah,
how I make money. I've been doing this for decades.
for
I'm an
sure.
expert. I and now I'm just going to be brand new and I have to like hustle and tell people about it. And
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
And and having kids and having, it was just, if I honestly believe that if I wasn't forced into it, I don't know if I would have made the change until I retired. But I
Yeah.
was forced into an early retirement because of the health issues that I have. And so that kind of changed,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
kind of changed for me in that respect.
It changed your motivation. It wasn't all just like roses and rainbows,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just gonna change career. It was like, I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it, you know, again, archetypally, this is really perfect because I think a lot of people, as they get into their 50s, they're starting to see like medical things that happen that put them in at risk of not being able to do the job, or maybe they can't do it physically anymore. And so I was thinking a lot about who this channel is going to be for, and there are so many ways that you can sort of do something that's still amazing, gives you freedom, but isn't physically hard, man, labor wise.
Yeah. And I would even say that, it's funny how things start because this is what I really wanted to do and was just afraid to do it and got forced into it. It hasn't felt like a hustle.
Yeah.
It's felt way less than a hustle. It feels more natural or more organic. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't mean that there's not a hustle involved here and there, but it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. What, and that's what a gift, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a dream scenario. So, wh how did the idea of turning meditation into a business like first come about? Like, how did Just Sit Seattle get created?
Well, Just Sit Seattle got created through a couple different, I guess you could call them events or experiences that happened. First, I was asked to tell my story about my struggles with addiction and how I got into recovery and how that road in recovery has worked at a treatment center with another friend of mine. And before we spoke, me and the director started talking, and I noticed he had some things in his office that kind of gave me the idea that this guy might meditate or he might be interested in meditation. He had like a meditation bell, he had a molia, he had some things that made me kind of ask him, hey, so do you meditate? And he was like, yeah, I totally do. And then he started talking to me. And then he asked me if I would be interested and maybe doing some groups weekly for the people that were at the treatment center, for the clients.
Right. So essentially you had a customer before you had a business.
I had a customer before I had a business. So that happened. And then, if we're going to be totally transparent on this podcast, then, I need to then say, and then I came to you with it, and you
Right.
said, oh, you're going to teach meditation. We're going to build you a website.
Right.
And you actually funded my sole proprietor license
Yeah. Yeah. I
because I
forgot
didn't
about
have the
that.
extra money because I was struggling because I'd lost my job and I was placed on long-term disability because of my health stuff. And I just didn't have the extra money to do that. So if it wasn't for friends and for just,
Yeah.
coincidence or whatever you want to call it, this probably wouldn't have started.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's crazy. Well, I appreciate the pat. I totally forgot about that. I think we've been friends so long that, it's a tit for
Yeah,
tat on how we help each other out because it's definitely been reciprocal in our relationship.
for sure.
Um, and so that's really cool. So basically, again, you had the gift of having a customer before you had to go find one. And so, my next question was going to be, what made you believe people would actually pay for this? But you kind of answered that question.
They
So,
but they offered
yeah,
it. And then that was the scary part. I didn't know what to charge. And so I think at the very beginning, I very much undervalued my service, and I was charging very little, you could say. I mean, it didn't seem like little to me, but it was very little. And so over time, you know, I've raised my rates as time has gone on, and I've become more confident in, what it is that I do. But and
so
then they started asking me to come more often.
hmm. So just to give people an idea, like what do you think, what were you charging an hour when you first started? Wasn't it like 40 or 60 or something like that?
I
Like,
think when I first started, it was $65 per group. And I was sometimes facilitating groups up to 30 people.
right,
So if you did that per person, I was charging less than $5 a person,
right, right. So we had to talk about, I remember kind of
less
talking
than
with you about
$2
this.
a person at
We
times.
when this became an issue, we talked about it, like how to revalue time and how to revalue value, right? So if
Yes.
multiple people are getting the same experience, we can easily justify charging more. And so obviously, in the beginning, you're learning. So you're gonna learn as you go. You're gonna learn about how to charge. You're gonna learn about value. Um, and then, today, what your rate's more like 150 bucks an hour, right? Which is
Yes.
totally reasonable with today's times. And I know that you have different pricing for groups and all that stuff, but all that stuff got worked out. And obviously, when you first start, I tell people all the time, you might have to give things away to get
Right.
testimonials. Like you
Yep.
might have to do a few free jobs to get a 5-star review. So don't worry
Yeah.
about that. Don't feel like you're getting taken advantage of. Remember, it's all going to come back to you because at the very least, somebody's going to refer you. So that
Yeah.
referral business will turn into something as a dividend later.
And that's
Um,
literally how I've built my business, has been completely referral, word of mouth.
yeah.
I feel very fortunate in the fact that I don't have to feel like I have to get out there and find work. It's been very interesting. It seems more like work finds me, and then I get to be in that position of choosing whether or not I want to take on more, or if I don't, or however that is.
Right. But so there's a little bit of right place, right time, but also, you did just start. Like you started. And then people and you told some people and then the referrals started coming in. And so
Right.
you're an example of somebody who hasn't had to hustle so much, but you did take that important step of like starting. And so
Yes.
what do you think was like the scariest or most awkward part of putting yourself out there in the beginning and like just telling people, hey, now I do this thing?
People taking us seriously. People, what are you talking about? You work on skyscrapers. Now you're going to all of a sudden be this meditation teacher, and then also, that fear of not being legit, not being good enough. That I constantly battle the inner critic of, I don't have enough letters after my name. So,
Yeah.
are they going to really take me seriously? I mean, who am I? And I think that was the biggest battle for me, was more of an internal thing than an external thing. And I don't think that's that unusual. I think that's often the case because, it's new.
Imposter syndrome is I think universal.
Totally.
When you first start out, everybody has imposter syndrome, and the trick is to pretend that it doesn't exist. There is no
Yes.
other way. You got to move through it.
You got to move.
Um, and so,
And I
so
would also add to that, Rory, that experience helps with confidence, right? Like as we become more experienced in whatever it is that we're doing, that confidence starts to build through lived experiences of like, oh, I know how to do this.
100%. And so just taking a step back a little bit, like we know that you got referrals, but you did have to get the word out. So how did you get the word? How did you attempt to get the word out in the beginning?
Well, business cards and talking to people at, different types of events or whatever. When people, it took a little while to not be shy
Yep.
or scared to say anything. But as time went on, uh, people would literally once they heard what it was that I was doing, they would ask for contact information. They would, do you have a card? I mean, so now today I have cards with me all the time because you have no idea when somebody's going to say something or when you're going to run into somebody.
Would,
So,
would you say, because again, we're friends, so I know what you do for marketing. Would you say that like your most effective use of your time and or resources, so we'll call it money and time, has literally just been talking to people about what you do?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and I tell people this all the time, like you just go places where you can talk about what you do and people will ask for your phone number. They'll ask for
Yeah.
your email. They will, all you have to do is tell people. That's it. Now, obviously now, if you don't want to go to networking events and you're not a part of any sort of big club that meets all the time with lots and lots of people, you can use social media. But
Yeah.
you're an example again, you just networked and that
Network.
seemed to work out.
And networked in a way that didn't, that was just kind of natural conversation. It wasn't like setting up appointments with people to tell them what it is that I do or whatever. And I would say that, these types of paths that we decide to take when we're, later in our lives, I tend to also hang out with people that are interested in what it is that I do, if that makes sense. Like my community, and the people that I hang out with and spend time with in one way or another are living or trying to live in a holistic way.
Yeah, yeah. So so I built your website and helped you with some tech. What was that process for you like? I'm not saying what was it like working with me. I'm saying what was it like going from like not having a website to then, deciding what that should be and look like and then having it done. Like what was that? Was that scary? Was it difficult? Was
It,
it
it was fun. It was
Yeah.
awkward. I don't like writing about myself. I don't like bios. That stuff makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm kind of I like being a worker among workers. So when I have to talk about myself in those ways and my journey and stuff, all of that would make me feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, it was fun. I mean, it was kind of cool. It was neat trying to come up with ideas of how I want the brand to look or how I wanted that website to look, what I wanted it to say. I remember us talking about mindfulness and different ways in which we can explain how this is beneficial to people. And so that was actually really fun. And in a weird way, it kind of started to build a little bit of confidence of like, oh, I kind of do know I mean, not kind of do. I do know what I'm talking about. I do know
Yeah,
how to do this.
it's funny once you have that website up, I'm always building like small brands for myself. And so I still remember what this is like. It's like, oh, my website's up. This is like real. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden you're
yeah,
empowered somehow. It's really weird.
yeah.
So,
It
okay.
is empowering.
So, you know, one of my questions that I think that I'm going to be asking about side hustles is, how do you go from side hustle to full-time business? But it seems to me that you kind of were sort of forced into going at this all in full speed. And so it happened the way it happened, right? I mean, you did what you
It
needed to
did.
do. Yeah. Okay.
And in my, I would have to say in my story might be different than some other people's in the fact that because I was forced into early retirement, I did have some supplemental income coming in via my pension and long-term disability. And, I had some things happening where I wasn't completely worried about having to constantly hustle for 40 hours a week all the time.
Yeah.
So that did alleviate a little bit of pressure. Um, but if I chose to, if I wanted to, I could easily be booked solid. It seems like 5 days a week, 40 hours a week.
Yeah, totally. So it sounds like you had a little bit of supplemental income, which helped ease the stress and frustration of starting a new business and getting those recurring clients. But the truth
Right.
is that if you had to, you would have, and that's just as simple as that.
It's just, yes.
So switching gears a little bit, what does a typical week look like now? Like with the freedom to travel and work remotely. I know you do on-site visits, and maybe we talk a little bit about like what do those customers look like for you now, and what's the maybe the weight of remote versus on-site?
As it stands right now, my remote, it's 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 about 60-40. So 60% of the time I'm on site, 40% of the time I'm remote during the week with clients. Now, the majority of my clients are institutions. They're treatment centers. So
Yeah.
they supply me the clients for the group. I
Right.
just have to find the treatment centers. Some of them I've been working with for a long time, since about 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
Others have picked up, are a little bit newer, but most of them are institutions. Now, I do work with one-on-one clients. Those tend to be shorter stints of time. Maybe it's, somebody will buy a package of 4, 6, or 8 or 10, sessions. Sometimes it's just a one-off. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this is cool, but I'm going to do something else. So, I have that flexibility. When I work with one-on-one clients, it's mostly via, like Zoom or Teams or some platform like that.
And you offer like a deal, package deal, like if they buy more
Yes.
Zoom personal one-on-one sessions, you make it like there's a cool offering there. That's
It-
cool.
Definitely. And also, a little bit of a sliding scale depending on where they are financially and what their needs are and what they have going on. So I don't have a rigid, now with institutions, I have a rigid,
Yeah.
this is what I charge.
Well,
And I,
you got to be because they have a
yes,
lot of people and there's a lot of moving parts. There's more management,
yeah.
there's more
And
setup, there's more communication.
and I have insurance for that. I have malpractice insurance. I have,
Yeah.
all of those types of things. Usually we do contracts, year-long contracts. So I have my own, um, what do you call them? I have my own, like, not rules, but what's the word?
Terms and stuff.
Terms.
Yeah.
Yep. And they have terms and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I love that you do sliding scale. I work with so many nonprofits and I have so many friends that need help. Oftentimes
Yeah.
I'm offering that. And the thing about sliding scale is again, it there's two ways to look at it. One is you're not maximizing your, hourly rate. And the other is you're just going to get it on the back end. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, I just sleep better at night knowing I did somebody a solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how is building Just at Seattle like changed your your lifestyle compared to your old life? Like how is if you just did sort of like a quick snapshot, like how has it changed? Like what's been the most unexpected benefit of this career path versus like doing masonry?
Well, I would have to say, the freedom that I have from this. I'm not tied down. I can do this remotely. When I travel, I can just bring my laptop with me and I can do groups from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Um, which has been really nice. So I'm not losing income or clients because I'm gone.
Yeah.
I get to keep them. And so there's a lot more freedom.
Yep. Yep.
There's just a lot more space in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
And so go
I
ahead.
get to choose how busy I want to be. I get to be as busy as I want to be in a
Yeah.
sense. Now I have to have a certain amount of busyness, obviously,
Yeah.
but I don't have to overwhelm myself with it. There's a
Yeah.
lot of freedom in that, I think.
That's awesome. And so do you have like maybe one story of a client or student whose life changed through some of the work that you do through meditation? Is there something that stands out for you, maybe a favorite moment or something where you said, "Oh, man, this stuff like matters. This is having an effect on the people I work with."
Well, the first thing that just came to mind really quickly, because it happened a little while ago, but when we were at the Nine Inch Nails concert and we were in the merch line, I ran into an old group participant that came
Ah,
up and said, "Hey, Mike, what's going on?" And I looked and I was like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And they were like, "Yeah, I've been totally meditating since I left the treatment center and I got 3 years, just the other month of being, drug and alcohol free. And I use, what you taught all the time." And just those little types of things have been huge
yeah,
because, when they leave the treatment center, when they leave the facility that they're at, I don't really have a lot of contact with them.
yeah.
And so when you run into them here and there and they're like, "Hey, just so you know, I've been meditating," or "just so you know, I'm still sitting," or whatever, it feels like, oh, okay, they're actually like, this is
Yeah, that's awesome. And just really quick, so you've talked about sobriety. How many years have you been sober again?
20, 26 in a month.
You've been sober more years than our daughter has been alive. That's
Been sober
crazy.
longer than all my kids, except for Karina will be 27. Karina just turned 27.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think it's important to note because, there's a big difference between being a year sober and how much wisdom you have a year sober and being 26 years sober. Um, so we've been close friends through
Yes.
this whole journey. What's something that you've experienced that maybe people don't see from the outside that you and I might take for granted about, running a meditation business as a career? Like what's something that somebody would just never know? Really, I'm trying to think of something for the viewer that's like, an insight that it might help a viewer that's thinking about a side hustle or thinking about doing coaching or some sort of teaching remotely.
Um, Gosh, can you phrase that question again?
Like what's something that somebody just wouldn't know about, maybe how hard it is or some of the difficulties or frustrations of running a business or something that just like an insight or um I think what I'm getting at is here, like when we look under the hood, what are the things that you have to deal with that may not be so awesome and fun? Like
Well, I think
is it
I would say it would probably depend on what your hustle is and what it is that you're doing for that hustle, right? For me, working in the community that I work in, there's just a lot of like, it can just be difficult. There people are going through some hard things. Sometimes it feels like a lot.
mm,
Like to be honest with you, I couldn't see myself doing this for 45 hours a week. I would burn out.
yeah.
It, it's heavy subject matter a lot of the time. People are going through difficult things. They have a lot of other extra stressors going on besides the fact that they're trying to get clean and sober, or they're trying to, deal with their substance use disorder, whether it's family stuff or work stuff or whatever. In the field that I work in, lots of people leave.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see people coming back again, and that can be heartening. That can be that can be hard
Heavy.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, God, I'm so glad. Yeah, I know that we struggled there with that question a little bit, but it's really true. Like when, you and I are both sober. So we spend a lot of time listening to people
Yeah.
and watching them grow through really tough scenarios, whether it be with their workplace, with their personal demons, with their past, with their dad, with their, how they treat their wives and their kids and how, cleaning up things. But in your business, there's this like, there's this hidden burden where, when somebody hires you, it's not you just giving.
Yeah.
You have to receive them as well, I imagine. You have to be quiet and sit with them, and they're going to talk about some gnarly stuff that they're dealing with. So emotionally, it sounds to me like the thing that you wouldn't necessarily know is just like a psychologist doesn't talk about all the time is, people are they're putting their stuff out there on you, and you don't just have like a wall that it just bounces off you. It comes into your brain and your heart and your spirit, and that's like a that you have to take it on to be present with them
Yeah.
and to be helpful. Not that you're necessarily going to fix their problems or do therapy, but
No,
it's still a part of the job that,
definitely.
if people think like, for instance, just teaching meditation is going to be about sitting and oming with a
Yes.
candle, like it can be a lot heavier. So that's awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, so just wrapping up, like what advice would you give to someone listening right now? Like, who wants to turn their own side hustle into a real business and lifestyle? Like what are some like tips about like how to get started, or should it just, just things like things you could have or maybe wanted to tell yourself early on that you didn't, to save you time? Or is it?
Well, I mean, I wish I would have started this earlier. I wish I didn't wait until I had some type of issue that happened that forced me into this. I wish I would have taken that leap earlier on in life. Now, things happen when they happen, sure, and all of that stuff. But, I kept myself from doing what I really wanted to do because I was afraid it wasn't practical or it wasn't going to work out or it wasn't a real thing. That's nobody's gonna do. There was just I was just cutting myself off before even starting.
Yeah. I I
Yeah.
I recently wrote this little ebook, and one of the things I put in it is if you're around 50 years old, you have 50 years of negative self-talk. And I talk about like being 8 years old with a broom and a rake, and I would just go down the street and I would knock on doors, and people would say no until they said yes. And
Yeah.
I didn't care if you said no. I
Yeah.
was just like, yep, that's another no. Got to go get the yes. And somebody's like, yeah, sure, $5. This is like 1980 that I
Yeah.
was like raking leaves for $5 or whatever. But that 8-year-old spirit just doesn't have 50 years worth of negative self-talk. And we
Mm-mm.
have so much that we don't even realize how we've already counted ourselves out the moment we've decided to start even thinking about having
Yes.
freedom in our lives. So it's a huge factor, and I'm really glad that you said that. And just, I think this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on, Mike. I think we should wrap it up. And it's just always inspiring to hear about your journey. And I think we'll just like wrap it up there, and I'll just say a little something about your business. If you want to learn more about Mike's meditation coaching, individual sessions, group work, retreats, or even having him as a travel companion for mindfulness on the road, head over to justsitseattle.com. You can also reach him at Mike at justsitseattle.com. Mike, any final thoughts or anything else you want people to know about meditation or what it's like to work with you?
I mean, those are the areas that are hard for me to talk about sometimes. But, I would say that, don't not do it because you're afraid that you've told yourself over and over and over you can't sit still. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You know, it's
So
all
it's like literally in your domain name, just sit
that.
Seattle. But
Yep.
obviously, if you're not in Seattle, you do remote work. So there you
Totally.
go. We just got to go buy. Just Sit's probably like $4,000 or
It
something.
was more than that. So that's why you added the Seattle to it because it
Right.
was like two
We
bucks.
Yeah, we had no choice. Mike, I love you, man.
I love
Thanks
you
for coming
too.
on, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude.
Okay, bye.